Morgan Fisher, thanks very much for finding time to talk to us this evening in Japan and here in Wales on this slightly chillier as usual morning. Um,
Yeah, my pleasure.
I wanted to talk to you firstly about the miniatures series because I think you know this, but I was absolutely honored to have a track on the most recent album through a friend
So
of
I hear, yeah.
which is just great. Um,
Hmm.
and I have the all 124 tracks, I'm sure, and of course you wrote some sleeve notes for it. Going back to the original miniatures, and it's great. I think that the trilogy exists now. Really, how did the original miniatures thing start off? And you had a pretty well a pivotal role in it. I think is that right?
Oh, it's my baby, yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
yeah.
The first one and the second one. Um, well, I've told this story before, so I won't make it too long.
That's okay.
But basically, I was working with this new indies label called Cherry Red Records,
Yeah,
and they'd put out a couple of my own albums already, and they kind of liked how it was going. And I was having a drink with the boss of the label, who's still the boss, Ian McNay, very nice guy, good friend. And he basically said, I love what you're doing. I love the fact you've got a home studio, which was still quite rare in those days.
mm,
They were just beginning to make an album in your bedroom,
yeah,
And he said, you know what, whatever you want to do, I'll put it out. In fact, what I suggest you do is make your own label so you have your own identity. And whatever you release on that, I'll distribute it and promote it for you. So all you got to do is make the record. That's like a dream for a musician if somebody says that to you. Of course, there wasn't huge amounts of money handed over, but still, he was willing. That's the point.
yeah,
And I was out of all that, out of all CBS and RSO records with big advances and all that. Like I'd done that for like
mm,
over 10 years and I was tired of it. So this feels like a really nice fresh start. So in my mind, I thought, well, whatever I record next, I'd like to collaborate with somebody. There's so many great musicians active right now. And I started writing a list of people who I'd like to collaborate with, many of whom I knew, many I didn't know, but I thought there'd be a chance. And this list just got longer and longer and longer. And I couldn't decide, just to pick one or two to collaborate with. So I did a bit of lateral thinking and I thought, well, if you can't pick one, pick them all. Just have them all collaborate with you. And then the next question is, well, how you're going to try and get them all together in one room and record them? I mean, that's going to be complete chaos because they were all different genres. And then I thought, well, no, just get them all on one album and give them a minute each to do whatever they want. And it was just about the right number of people in the end. I got 50 people, which is just about the number of minutes you can cram onto an LP.
yeah.
So that's basically how it started. And I sent invitations to everyone. And amazingly, they nearly all said yes, because I was not handing out any money either.
No.
It was all just for the fun of it. And for people thought, oh, great idea. Yeah, I want to be involved.
But did you come up with miniatures as well? The actual title.
Well, that was my idea, the
Yeah,
title.
perfect.
How do you mean?
No, just the idea of it's 1 minute long. Let's call it miniatures. It's just great, perfect.
Well, actually, I did start off with a couple of possible ideas of miniaturizing an existing piece of work.
Okay.
That was a possibility. And in fact, I may even have said that to the first few people I invited. Like, if you're interested in taking something existing, whether it's your own or a known piece of music, and miniaturizing it, because I just quite like the idea. I think I was already getting into the idea of Japanese bonsai and things like that. I just like small things.
Yeah.
I like dinky toys as well, Lego, everything. But as the project progressed, I realized that there was no point in putting any limitations. Just give me a minute of whatever you want. But the idea of miniatures, of miniaturizing something, still seemed like a good title, at least.
Yeah.
And a few people actually did do that. So, for example, David Bedford did Wagner's Ring Cycle in 1 minute. Fred Frith did the entire works of Henry Cow in 1 minute.
Wow.
So a few of them did actually go for that.
Yeah.
idea. But in the end, I thought it doesn't matter. Just let them do what they want. The whole point is how you put it together in the end, you know?
And how do you feel about it? You know, the fact that there are now 3 albums, and how do you think the 3 kind of pull together as a piece of work, as body of work, I suppose?
Well, I mean, it's hard to sit down. I haven't sat down and listened to all 3 at one go.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just like the idea that they're from different stages in the different times, and there's 20 years between each one, which is a nice round figure. And they definitely show how things have changed and sometimes how they haven't changed. And that what's interesting with that is that some of the artists from the previous ones are on the new one.
Yes.
Like Robert Fripp and Terry Riley and a couple of others. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of continuity.
I think have some been on all 3.
You know, I haven't sat down and checked properly.
John Otway, maybe?
Well, actually, Robert Fripp.
Of course, yeah.
Otway's only on 2, I think, only the first one and this one. Fripp is on all 3. He was on his own on the first one. It was him and his bass player Traegun on the second one. And on this one, he's with Toya.
Yeah, so I think he's in disguise, if I remember.
I believe he's using a pen name or something, but he is on there.
I mean, looking at the names on that original album, I just jotted down a few last night, and they're all kind of, in a really great way, I think, quintessential British eccentrics, really. You know, George Melly, Quentin Crisp, Ivor Cutler, Robert Wyatt, even Andy Partridge in his way, just totally eccentric but wonderfully fascinating characters. What was it when you were approaching these people? Were there any quite tricky to get on board? Do you remember at the beginning?
Not that I remember. No, I think everyone was very gung ho. I don't think anybody needed persuading much.
I did catch your part of the interview with Ian from Cherry Red, in which you said about the Ivor Cutler moment with the £1, which is quite a good story.
Yeah, because I actually sent everybody £1.
Yeah.
That's all I could afford, and it was actually done in good faith. And actually, you know what? It's actually part of the legal process of music. A lot of contracts are not legal unless what's the word? A nominal amount of money has exchanged hands. And I just signed one actually today where they're going to give me £1 advance. That makes it real, you see. So I thought, almost like a joke, I thought, well, I'll actually when you do that, you don't actually get the £1. It's just on paper, you know. But I thought I'll actually send them £1. Not only did I send everyone £1 together with the invitation, I sent them a reel of tape, 1 minute long, little reel, knowing that probably most of them couldn't even use it, that didn't have home studios like I did. But I just liked the gesture. I wanted to make it more real, more alive, not just a letter, but a letter and £1 and a tape. Yeah. So that's what everybody got. Many people wrote back and said, well, I can't use the tape. I said, oh, don't worry about it. Just record it however you like, on a cassette or anything, or in a big studio if you like Andy Partridge was making an XTC album, so he did his in a proper studio. Wow. But Ivor Cutler sent the £1 back saying, I don't wish to be treated like this, you know, kind of thing. And so I wrote back and said, listen, Ivor, I'm broke. This is just a friendly gesture. It's not what I think he called it the king's penny or something like that. Yeah. Sort of one gives the poor a penny, you know. I said, actually, I'm actually broke, and this is a totally independent one-man project. Sorry about if you felt bad. And he said, oh, okay, I understand. Let's do it. And that was fine.
Yes.
So really, there was no need to persuade or explain. Most people just went for it.
There was a lovely documentary recently about Ivor Cutler, actually. I remember it was trying to make Katie Tunstall. She presented.
Yep.
It's on channel. I don't. Can you access British TV at all online?
Sometimes I can if I've got the right piece of tricky software.
It's a lovely program because it's she goes around talking to his former partner and lifetime friends and everything else. It's just a really lovely program.
Right.
So I spoke to Alan Davis. So Alan Davis, you'll probably never meet Alan Davis, and you'll probably never meet me, but we're meeting kind of virtually at least. But Alan he lives in a little tiny place called Llanbradash, which is near Caerphilly,
Uh-huh.
15 miles from here, I suppose. Quite a small village, actually. And I've known Alan a long time. He's a really imaginative, creative guy, which is why
Yeah.
I'm talking about him to you. But
Right.
one day he realized I think it was the 40th anniversary of miniatures, and you know this already, but I mean, and he said, what a great idea. So he put on Facebook, anybody, what think about this? Should we do it? Wouldn't it be a great idea? Just thinking to just be mates sharing things around. So yeah, I'm up for it, Al, And then it just grew and grew, and then Barry got involved, and trying to think the other guys got involved, and it just grew and grew and became this thing. It's kind of incredible, though, isn't it? The way that it's developed.
Yeah. Well, William was the third guy who did actually all the compiling and mastering, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I don't know any of these guys much at all, except from Facebook, really.
Yeah. Well,
so hopefully we'll meet and we'll have a really good toast one day.
It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? Alan Davis is, he's a massive fan, and he says, he did. This wasn't for me to share with you, but you totally inspired him, so he loves it. He's absolutely blown away. And he also, coming back to him later on, he's also a particular album that he likes. But he wanted me to talk to you about Jar Wurzel.
Yes. What about him?
Tell us a little bit about the Jar Wurzel character and his role in this.
Well, of course, he's not on miniatures. He's on one of the albums I did before miniatures.
Yeah.
And it was like when I first got my home studio, I've been in more regular rock bands and so on, but I've always liked the eccentric things. I've always loved Frank Zappa and Soft Machine and all sorts of wild and wonderful stuff. And I'd been making funny home demos of my own and so on. And when I got the chance to make an album at home and have it released by Cherry Red, I decided to go for the maddest demos that I've been making and kind of work on them. And the idea was to take known songs and give them a completely opposite, sort of diametrically opposite arrangement. So one song was a punk version of Save Your Kisses for Me, Brotherhood of Man, but Jar Wurzel was a kind of rapper. I don't know why I came up with it. It was from Jar Wobble, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
The name Jar Wobble sounds a bit like Jar Wurzel. And so I did a dub version of Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. And a dub reggae version with a Wurzel Somerset Cider accent.
I need to listen to this. Is this Hybrid Kids you're talking about?
Exactly. Sorry, yeah, I should have said the album's called Hybrid Kids. Yeah.
Was that the one you worked on with? Was Neil Innes involved in that at all?
No, not at all. No, he's on miniatures, but not on this.
Okay.
Lol Coxhill was on one track.
Yeah.
But that was the second one. But the first Hybrid Kids album, and I was in cahoots with Ian from Cherry Red. He said, why don't we make it as if it's like a compilation album of 12 different bands.
Yeah. From
a small town in America, for example.
Yeah.
And at that time, there were small towns in America were getting quite famous. I can't remember the name now. One that Devo came from, and one that Chrissy Hine came from. Suddenly, these little names were being mentioned in NME and so on. So we thought, yeah, find another little town like that, and let's turn it into a legend. So I found an actual town called Peabody in Texas.
Yeah.
It sounded like sort of nerdy and minor enough to be a good one to use. So we actually went on the BBC radio and said, this Hybrid Kids album is actually a collection of 12 bands from Peabody, Texas. And they believed us.
Did it work as a marketing ploy?
I think it worked briefly as a way to get it on the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but pretty quickly we owned up to it. In fact, the word got out anyway.
Just to ask you about something which came into my mind when you were talking then. This is jump into it in a way to a different topic, but it's on the same thing really. You know, music papers and kind of how as younger people the music papers were so sort of important to us, and how we kind of wanted to know everything that's going on in music. I know it's kind of tangential to what you're talking about in a way, but it's kind of we totally lost all of that, haven't we? You know, there's no kind of reality to, you know, there's nothing tangible, is there, for people to sort of cling to? You know, we had
Well,
those
also,
stories, you know.
also the pity is things like getting together every week and say, did you see that article in NME? Wasn't it great? And it's sort of localized and we've all seen it. So we've got something in common to talk about. But now there's nothing in common. It's all completely spread out. And you can have anything you want at any time. So there's none of this regular thing. It's also similar with television. People say that because most people now watch YouTube, Netflix and things, there's not that weekly show on TV that you can talk about the next day and say, wasn't Monty Python fantastic last night? Yeah. You know, and we've lost that kind of regular thing where we all focus on one thing for a brief time.
Yeah. Also the physicality of it, like the miniatures, you know, the most recent miniatures album, I'd seen pictures of it, right? This is exactly what we're talking about. I'd seen pictures of it, but not until I got it in my hand, I could see how beautiful that artwork was, and how the booklet and the love and care, and, you know, that it got into it, the physicality of stuff. You know, I was thinking about it today. I said just literally before we came in this morning, Ian Jury and the Blockheads, the famous album where he's standing outside the window with his son, and again, the artwork and the whole package of it. But these days, when will buying an album become a thing again? You know, it's just.
Well, I think people are wanting it again more, though.
I hope so.
I mean, CDs sell a lot in Japan, probably more than any other country. A lot of CDs are sold here. People are always selling CDs at gigs. You know, you can't sell a download at a gig.
No.
What are you going to give them, a USB stick or something? Boring. But people sell CDs at gigs. I'm still waiting for my miniatures album, by the way. I haven't got it yet, the new one, so I haven't seen it.
I'll put an official complaint in for you.
No, thank you. No, it's all right. It's on its way. I know it is. But that was what was nice about the first album, and I wanted to make it a special package. And to get Ralph Steadman to do the cover was such a bit of luck. So I'm internally grateful. I mean, no money required. And he's a master, you know, and he did this thing. When I asked him, I was expecting like a 5-second splash of ink, as he does, like nobody else does. And that would have been fine for me. But no, he made this huge collage. It's about this big, about 3 foot square. Right. And half of it is a drawing. And half of it is this incredible collage. He must have taken hours and hours. And he did it all for nothing. There's enthusiasm for you.
Yeah, that's the spirit, you know. That's, you know, and I suppose he thought, I'm going to do it for nothing, I might as well do it well, you know.
Well, why not? I know how he feels. I've done things like that, but also I decided that we'd try and get something visual from everybody. So I asked all the artists to make a little drawing or something. I said it's going to be this big, you know, about 2 inches square, on a poster inside the album. And so everybody sent me something which added more, you know, richness to the package. So I've got that. There's a big 24-inch square poster in miniatures and in the new vinyl reissue, by the way. And on the back of the poster is fragments of letters that I'd received from the artist during the making of the album. So it's a nice, rich, juicy package, you know. And downloads are not like that. No, you just get the music and that's it.
Yeah, not at all. Vinyl came back in, but vinyl came back in quite a contrived sort of suiting the needs of capitalism kind of way. You know, suddenly it's like 30 quid, you know, to get a not particularly well made vinyl album. We used to get them for 50 pence from the charity shop. You know, it's you know, but at least it's healthy that it's back, and cassettes came back in slightly. But I don't want to be stuck in the old days. But I think it's a real shame. I think it's something that we're losing. I teach in a university, right? So my students, they don't watch TV. They don't read newspapers. They don't listen to the radio, right? and
Right.
they don't buy, and they don't rarely buy physical music.
Right.
So I think, I hope, I'd ask you this question actually. What do you think? These things tend to go in cycles. I know we kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I hope it'll spin around, because at some points, can I actually have something? Can I actually hold something? Can I actually see something?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, after this ghastly pandemic has gone away, I think people will be desperate to go and see live bands.
Definitely.
And that will get the whole thing rolling again,
Yeah.
and more than before, I'm sure. And then the live bands will, like I said, probably be selling CDs as well as merchandise, because that's how we make a living,
Yeah.
And it'll all kind of pick up again, and probably better than before, because when you've been missing something for as long as we have already, you're going to want it.